Welcome to today's Chidom Academy class. My name is Chedin Paul. Today we'll be looking into general biology, and the section is zoology part. So, what is zoology? Zoology is simply when you are studying about animals holistically. You are dealing with anything relating to animals. You are studying them bit by bit, and they all related to animals. All right. For us to do this study properly, let's look into cell, because you can't talk about living animal, you can't talk about animal without talking about their basic unit of life. Okay, so cell cell is the basic unit functional part of living organism, living animal. So you cannot talk of living animal without talking about cell, because this is the smallest part of them that is still living, that is still having all the properties as a living thing. Okay, so let's look into the organelles, what the structural aspect of the cell, what makes up the cell, what they are found in, what could be found inside cell. They are called organelles. So let's look into them bit by bit. So we have the nucleus. Nucleus is known to have the hereditary characters. So any characteristics that is embedded in a cell, they are being harbored inside the nucleus. All right, the DNA, the chromosome, they are found in the nucleus, and all these things are hereditary materials. They are simply found in the nucleus. The next one that we found there is lysosome. Lysosome. Lysosome is a chemical that God just placed in a cell, so that anytime the cell is found defective, they can easily burst and they consume the cell. I mean, lysosomes are being embedded in the cell so that it can consume the cell anytime the cell is found defective, or having problems, so that it doesn't affect the rest of the cells. Okay, it's a chemical. And in the eye too, we have lysosome and other sensitive part of the body too. So in the eye, they function as a antiseptic chemicals that disable bacteria to penetrate the eye. All right, they are found in the cell. Another one that you can find here is cytoplasm. Cytoplasm. Cytoplasm simply means the all the environment in the cell outside the nucleus. So everything in the cell outside the nucleus, the spaces in the cell, they are the cytoplasm. We have the cell membrane. Cell membrane. Cell membrane is what encapsulates the cell, what enables the cell to harbor all the organelles in it. And they are selective in nature. They don't allow anything to penetrate the cell. They are something that are being allowed to enter the cell. If not, the cell can consume anything that it come across on. All right. So we have another part we call Golgi apparatus. Golgi apparatus or Golgi body. When the cell synthesize protein, though I will still talk about the ribosome, because this is the part, the organelle that deals about production of protein. So when this protein is being produced in the cell, so this one helps to transport it to the parts where they are being needed. So ribosome is an organelle that deals with production of protein. Production of protein takes a lot of processes. They takes a lot of processes from the transcription of the DNA, from the formation of the transport messenger RNA. Now the messenger RNA going to the ribosome for the coding and for the production of proteins. Now after the production of proteins in the ribosome, they are being carried by this Golgi apparatus to the part of the cell where they are being needed. We have another one they call endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum simply is an organelle where these ribosomes are being attached. So ribosome attach itself to endoplasmic reticulum. You could say that endoplasmic reticulum and the ribosome help to aid in protein synthesis. Now, the endoplasmic reticulum that does not have any ribosome attached to it, they are being ascribed as smooth endoplasmic reticulum, while the one that is having ribosome attached to it is a rough endoplasmic reticulum. We have another one here. They call it vacuole. Vacuole, food vacuole. So they are found in plant, they are found in animal too. These ones help to maintain tuber pressure, whether a cell could be flaccid or turgid in nature. So when this is being removed from the cell, the cell can run flat. So this one maintain the internal pressure of the cell, and they also help to vet out unwanted products or wanted material from the cell. So when the cell feel that there is excess water from in it, so this particular organelle will help to pass out that excess of water so that the water in the cell could be the amount meant for it, and the pressure will be maintained. All right, having discussed all these organelles in the cell, it's desirable to talk about the taxonomy, how these animals are being classified. Because the cells are what makes up the animal. But animal in group, how are they classified? The taxonomy, the same way we have in botany, we have the taxonomy in zoology too. Just the same trend, because the Carlos Linnaeus also participated in this one too, in classifications of animals. So they are classified under kingdoms, they are classified under phylums, class, order, and families too. Okay, taxonomy. So the taxonomy. But there are some ways the animals are classified here. There are some principles that enable us to know how those animals are being classified. They have two theories under this. In zoology, there are basically two theories of taxonomy. The first one that we have is evolutionary theory, taxonomy, and another one we have is phylogenic. Phylogenic. So phylogenic taxonomy and the evolutionary taxonomy, they are the two theories of taxonomy that we have here. So this one is categorizing, they are classifying the animals based on what they share, the ancestors share together. So when the ancestor that they originate from, you know, based on what they share in common, they classify them under evolutionary. Now, based on what they share, they derive characteristics that they share. That means it is under phylogenic. All right. So there are so many strata of the classifications, the kingdom that we know. So we are discussing about the zoology. So definitely we are talking about the kingdom of animal. All right. So, but there are many phylums under this zoology. The first phylum you could see, or there are many of them. You could see the arthropoda. You could see the arthropoda. You could see the mollusca. You could see the annelida. You could also see platyhermite, platyhermite. You could also see nematode, and the rest of the phylum that you could see as you progresses down to the least evolved animals. So all these things are phylums under animals. So we can be taking them one after the other. So this nematode that could also be called roundworm, because these are the category, the phylums that have been known for how they look like. They are called roundworms. They are called roundworms. So platyhermites are called flatworms. Okay. The annelid are called the segmented worms. And remember, all these things are based on their morphology, how they look like, how their body structure look like, and that is why all these names are being attached to them. So mollusks are characterized based on the special features that they have, starting from the visual marks, the mantle, the food that they have. We shall be discussing them holistically one after the other. But then let's go to Arthropoda. Arthropoda is a phylum, and according to the scientists, they are the greatest phylum in the earth. Both the living organism and the fossil organism existed so far. So they have a greater proportion of living things that have ever existed. All right. So that is Arthropoda. So there are many classes you could see under Arthropoda. There are many classes. You can see the crustacean. You can also see the insecta. The insectas are called the hexapod too. Hexapod. You can see the arakinga. You can see the myriapoda. All right. So all these things are classes you can see under Anthropoda. Remember that I told you that these are great, the particular phylum that have a greater number of living organism and fossil organism too that have ever existed. All right. Maybe because of their body structures, they don't occupy much spaces, and their exoskeleton that enable them to circumvent so many eventuality that may result to their death, and increase their lifespan. So crustaceans are okay. Let me give examples. We have barnacle. We have prawns. We have crabs too. All right. Under hexapod, we have cockroach. We have the rest of them, the grasshopper, the ants. They are under that place. So arachnidas, we have the scorpion, we have the spider, and the rest of them. So under this myriapoda could be subdivided into two again. We have the one that we call chilopoda or chilopods, and we have the one that we call diplopods. Okay, so crustaceans, they have been known because of their particular features that they have. The prawns, they have segments. Remember, they have segments in each of them. All the anthropoda, they have segments as some parts of their body. They have basically three divisions of their body. That is the anthropod. They have the head, they have the thorax, and they have the abdomen. So these are basically the three segments of the anthropod. So in crustacean, all these things are in segment, but they are closely fused together. That is one of their characteristics. They are closely fused together. There is no much flexibility. For example, in prawn, the head and the thorax seemingly look like something fused together. There's much restriction. That is the proper way. There's much restriction there. And they also have pair of antennas. Pair of antenna, meaning they have up to 4 antennas. All right, that is crustacean. Coming to insecta from the name hexapod. Hexapod means that they have 6 appendages, 6 legs. They have 6 legs, and coming to the antenna, they just have 2 antenna. I remember this anthropoda, they have exoskeleton generally. They have exoskeleton, and having mentioned that they have this segment. So this degree of relationship between this segment distinguish them from the other. This one have just six appendages. They have 2 antenna, and the rest of them, the arachnida, the scorpion, and this spider too. In this particular class, the head and the thorax are together. The head and the thorax, they just have 2 segments. The first segment is having just these 2, and this abdomen is having 1 segment. The first segments here are called the saphlothorax. Okay, saphlothorax, from the name saphlothorax, telling you that these 2 and these 2 are together. The next one is called opistosoma. Opistosoma, that is the abdomen. So coming to the arachnida have the 2 segments. The first one is the cephalothorax, and the second segment is opistosoma. So that is what you can find here. And the one distinguished or one significant characteristic of this particular class is that they don't have antenna. Unlike the rest of the 2 that we discussed earlier. So this particular one does not have antenna, and they have fused body. So coming to the myriapoid have so many segments. And each of the segments must have an appendage. A myriapoid, they have so many segments, and each of the segments, if this thing were to be their segment, in each of the segments they will have appendage. That is working their legs. So that is one distinguished features that you can see in myriapoid. But the difference between these 2 and these chilopods and the diplopods is this one have a poisonous claw. They have poisonous claw. That is an example of this one is centipede. The centipede. The centipede is an example of chilopods. Why in diploid is the millipede. The millipedes. So what I'm saying in essence is that centipede have crocs, a poisonous cross, while this one don't have. The rest of the features they share them in common. They have so many segmented bodies, and each of the segments have appendages. And that is all for arthropod. The next phylum that we have here is the mollusca. The mollusca, they have special characteristics because of how their body structures look like. All right. So let me just give a rough sketch of how these mollusks look like, especially the snail. All right. Okay. All right. So this is the vestigial marks. This is the foot. So the top surface of this particular body is the mantle, and the mantle secretes these vestigial marks. So from this mantle that this particular vestigial marks emanate. All right. So we have the tentacle. We have the tentacles, and on top of these places you have the eyes. The eyes the snail used to feel and to see, to dictate some of the sensitive stimuli around. Okay, so this is a particular feature or the characteristics of a typical mollusca. We have some other example apart from the snail. We have the oyster. We have the squid too, and the rest of the examples under this mollusca. It will be desirable that you know that this particular animal or organism, they may live up to 5 or 6 years. Their lifespan is usually 5 or 6 years, and they at maximum you'll be seeing something like 9 years. So they may not exist more than 9 years. This is how nature just placed them to be. Okay, having discussed this, it is desirable you know about echinodermata. Echinodermata is another phylum related to mollusk. Echinodermata. Echinodermata. It is a phylum on its own, and they have been known because of their spiny structure of the body. Like the edges of their body, they are usually sharp. They look like star. Echinodermata. They look like star this way. All right. So all these things are the spiny ends that they have. And one interesting features about these ones are they are the invertebrate that is most related, or they have a close relationship with the chordata. Chordata. Chordatas are the particular class of animal that have cords, that runs in their body. The nerves are the dorsal part of their body. So this is an example of a particular phylum that is related to this particular class of animal, or should I say the particular phylums of animals. That is what makes this one to be the most advanced of invertebrates. So echinodermata can be ascribed as the most advanced. Why? Because of how they are related to the chordatas. Chordatas are animals that have the notochord that runs in their body. They have the nerve cords in their body. So this animal is related to them because of that, and it's also an invertebrate. So it's regarded as the most advanced. It's the most advanced invertebrate. The most advanced invertebrate. They have so many life cycles, from that of the balustra, that of the gastrula, and the rest of them. So many life cycles that result, and they make sure that they perpetuate and survive in nature. Let's discuss about the next phylum here, and that is the annelida. These phylums, they are called the segmented worms. They have so many segments in their body, and they have cord that runs in their ventral surface of the body. Unlike a human being, we have a dorsal cord that runs in our spine, is situated at the dorsal part of our body, but in annelida, they are called run in the ventral part of their body. They have segments. They have so many segments in their body. This particular phylum can be subdivided into two again. We have the polycata, and the clitelata, and the polycata. So this particular one, like the name is tells, polycata. Poly means many. This means many, and this kata means hair. So these ones have a particular features of having so many several hairs all over their body, and there are many of it. There are most of these. Why the clitelata is ascribed as something having a feature called clitellum. Clitellum. Clitellums are found in the body of the annelida. Clitellum is a place that harbors the genital aperture of that animal. So this particular animal does not have the clitellum, while these ones are known as an annelid that have the clitellum. The clitellum or clitellum. So clitellum is a particular organ, is a part of the segment in annelid that harbors the genital apertures of that particular organism. So in polycata, they don't have the clitellum, they just have many hairs around their body with some other features that enable them to move. So with these hairs, they can move along. Unlike in this one, they don't have much hair. Like this one can be subdivided into two again. We have the one that they call oligoceta. Oligoceta is known to have a few hairs around their body, and the one that we call hirudinea, hirudinea and the oligoceta. These are the subclasses under this clitelata, and these ones are alone. Okay, under this they have clitellum, and instead of having excess hair, instead of having too much hair, these ones have what they call the satire. The satire. Satire is just like a celiac structure. The satire is just like a celiac structure that helps them in locomotion. So this particular class, the clitelata, they have few hairs. They have seta. Seta is just like a celiac structure that helps in locomotion. So this seta is all over the segments of their body. The seta is all over the segments of their body, just in particular places where you cannot see the seta. Like all of them, you have seta all over their body, just in first segment and in last segment. For example, okay, let me just list the example. We have the one that we call lumbricus. Lumbricus is an example that I can find here. These ones are the leeches. So in lumbricus, which is an earthworm, is an earthworm. In earthworm, if this were to be an earthworm, okay. So if this were to be the last segment of the earthworm, it means that the seta runs all over their body, apart from the first segment and the last segment. The first segment is the mouth part. This one is the posterior part. So the clitorum that we mentioned earlier, are usually around this place. Okay, and that will bring me to the regions of earthworms. So we have three regions. This one is the precliteral region. This one, the area having the clitorum, is the clitoral region. Clitoral, and this part is the post clitoral region. All right. So this particular segment, it's usually in a normal earthworm, the number one segment to the 13th segment. That is where you can see the precliteral region. From number 1 to number 13 segment, that is what is known to be the precliteral region. Now the segment, the clitorum, the segment that is having the clitorum is usually from 14 to 16. That is the clitoral region. While the last part having the 17 down to the last part, and the postclitorial region. So, having talked about this clitorium, I told you that they are the parts that harbors they are the part that harbors the genital aperture. So, it's how the female genitals or the male genitals. And I forgot to tell you that in this earthworm or in this annelid, they could be dioecious. They could be dioecious. What I mean is that having they can be having see what I mean dioecious. They can be having single genital there, or they could be hermaphrodites, just like the way we have monoecious in plants. They could be hermaphrodites, meaning that they could have two genitals, both female and the male, in the same plant. So this is a place where the genitals can be located, and these are the regions of the particular earthworm. So earthworm can be classified under oligochaeta, and the hirudinea is a leech. Leech is a particular animal that is having the oral or the posterior sucker. They have sucker in the anterior part or the posterior part. And this particular animal can be used. They used to make a proper use of this animal in the old medicine that dated back to the um, days where the medicine originated from the Greeks, from the Chinese practices of medicine. They use this leech to suck their perceived bad blood that have accumulated in a particular place. When they perceive that a particular blood has been accumulated in your body parts, they could pick this leech, which is the family of Hirudinea. They could just pick it and place it on that place that you are having a problem of, or you are having accumulated bad blood that they perceived earlier, and this leech can suck them out. So these leeches, they are known for their sucking mouth parts, which could be oral or posterior. All right. Having known about this lumbricus and the clitorium, clitoriums are found in lumbricus, in earthworm, but they don't just harbor the genital aperture there. They also help to secrete a protein called albumin. Albumin. So albumin is a protein that helps to produce a case, because earthworm produce a case where they harbor their eggs. So albumin is a protein that helps to produce those cases where eggs of the earthworms are being harbored. So when the genital aperture secrete the albumin, albumin produce a case called cocoon. Cocoon. So cocoon is a case that harbors the eggs of the earthworm, and under favorable conditions, when this cocoon is being produced as a case harboring all the eggs of the earthworm, they could be ejected out of the earthworm, and the fertilization will start occurring. And most times, when each cocoon having so many eggs in it, after fertilization, they may end up, fertilizing just one of it, so producing the earthworm that is found in that particular cocoon. So we have succeeded in discussing the phylums of living things, phylums of animals, discussing about the annelid, the mollusca, the arthropoda, and the rest of them. Now let's progress in discussing about tissue, because cells is a unit of life. Now in a progression, because cells makes up the living thing, but we need to know how stepwisely all this a full human being is made, or a full living thing under zoology is being made. Cell is a unit of them, and now a step further is the tissue, meaning that tissue is just the aggregate of a cell. A specialized cells make up a tissue. We have so many tissues in the body. We have the muscle tissue, we have the nervous system tissues, we have the epithelial tissues, and the rest of them. But let's be picking them one after the other. Let's discuss the epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissues, they are simply the cells that are found under surfaces. Depending on the specialized work they are being meant for, they are being found under a specialized, under surfaces. It could be internal, it could be external. For example, in smooth muscle, in tubulus, in all internal parts of the body. It could be outside part of the body too. In the skin, they can have the epithelia. But these things are the cells embedded on the surface, maybe for a particular reason of protections, or to facilitate a particular movement in that area where they are being found. So this epithelia can be subdivided into so many parts. The epithelia, we have the okay, let me start with writing the simple and the compound. The simple epithelia and the compound. The simple is the one having just one cell in it. So an epithelia having just single cell in it, maybe when single cell are being deposited on the surface of a region in the body, is simple epithelia. When they have multiple of cell, aggregation of so many cells on that same surface, I mean in layers, when they have layers of cells from the basement, that is a compound epithelia. So under this simple epithelia, you'll be having the cuboidal epithelia. You could be having the columnar. You could be having the columnar, the ciliated. You could be having the squamous. You could be having the squamous. Now under this compound, you'll be seeing the stratified, and you will be seeing the transitional. So these are the epithelia, the divisions of epithelia that we have, the simple, the compound. This simple and compound determines, or they are being given based on the number of cells that you can find from the basement. Remember what I told you about epithelia? Epithelia are just a cell that are placed on the basement, just a cell covering up a surface. Maybe depending on the kind of features that or the kind of duty that they are needed to be doing in that particular area. So when the cells are just singly deposited on the surface from the basement, one cell attached to the basement directly is simple. When they have to be in layers, that means they are talking about the compound epithelia. So let's go to cuboidal. Cuboidal is a type of epithelia. They simply look like this microscopically. They look like this. Okay. All right. So this particular type of epithelia, they are the least out of the types of simple epithelia that are specialized for a particular function. What I mean is that they could be found in so many parts of the body. There is no specialized function that they do. They could be found in a part of the body that are secretory in nature. They could also be found in a part of the body that are not secretory in nature. Talking about a part that are secretory in nature, you could have the sweat gland, all this gland that produces hormones. They could be found there, and they could also be found in part that does not secrete anything at all, like the proximal tubulus, the distal, the convoluted tubulus that does not necessarily secrete a particular substances. So that is cuboidal, and you see their thickness is of a particular range. Unlike this columnar, the thickness of the columnar are higher than the cuboidal. The columnar looks like this. They have the bigger thickness, all right, and there is the columnar. Okay, so as you can see, they have so many thickness. So if you are comparing these two, this cuboidal and this one, you can see that the cytoplasm of this one, and remember, there is always a nucleus, because the nucleus will tell you how many cells they are talking about. They have single nucleus. Each cell have nucleus. All these things are single cell embedded on this surface. So this surface, let's call it basement. So this is the basement, and the one cell is attached directly to the basement. That is why we call them simple epithelia, because each cell is directly attached to the basement. So, but the difference between these two is that you can see that the cytoplasm is larger here than this place. This place have a smaller thickness, while this one have a wider thickness, and you'll be seeing the nucleus in each one. You'll be seeing nucleus in each of them. So one of the importance or one of the features of this one is it have a bigger cytoplasm, and because of this reason, a particular cell called the globulet cells, they can be harbored inside the columna. Why? Because of the bigger cytoplasm that they have. So the globulet cell, they can be harbored inside this place because of the higher space that they have, the higher thickness that they have. And what is the function of these globulet cells? These globulet cells are known for their production of mucus. So they are known for the production of mucus. Now, God made the body in a nature that any place that mucus are highly needed, you will see the columna there, because the columna is the best man that can harbor the goblet cells. So take for example stomach. Stomach is known to have the acidic content. So if mucus are not produced, stomach might one day be distorted, might one day get burnt of the acidic nature of its surrounding. So this columnar cell is a type of the cell, the epithelia tissue that you'll be seen in the linings of the stomach. Why? Because the columna, having the globulet cell, can produce mucus, so that when this mucus is being produced, it can circumvent the stomach from being damaged by the high acidic content of the stomach. The same thing with the small intestine and the rest of them. You could also see the columna there. Why? Because there are so many enzymes that work in the intestine. So when this columna is being situated there, or when they exist that place, they can have this man that can produce this mucus that will enable them to be free, or to be safe from the harsh nature of some enzyme that can destroy them. The next one that we have here is ciliated. Ciliated, just like hairs, they have hairs. Ciliated are columnar too. Most of them are columnar in nature, but the difference between the columnar and the ciliated is that at the top of the cells, they have hairs. They have hairs. In the top of the cell, they have hairs. So these particular ciliated are needed in a place where the movement is actually needed. Maybe a movement of a particular substance on their surfaces are actually needed. And that is why ciliated epithelia, they are normally found in the respiratory tract, because sometimes you may need to to have some expectorant, or to have some expectoration to bring out phlegms, mucus that shouldn't be in your respiratory tract. So that is why the ciliated are, or how nature just makes ciliated to be there, because movements are actually needed. So in respiratory tract, that is where you can see this one. In this one, you can see them where mucus are highly needed in the intestine and the stomach lining. Now coming to squamous, unlike all these ones, this one have a particular thickness, this one having the higher thickness or highest thickness, while this one is just an attachment of cilia on the columnar part. Coming to squamous, squamous have 18, squamous look like this. Squamous have 18 sides. Their thickness are not much. Look at the size, microscopic view of squamous epithelia. See how they looks like with the cells or the nucleus of the cells attached here. So the thickness are just minor, their sizes are just small. And this particular epithelia, they are being needed when or where diffusion is actually needed. When diffusion is needed to pass some material across, and that is where you can find them. For example, in the alveoli, the alveoli is a place where the exchange occurs. The exchange between the carbon dioxide and the oxygen, is the capillary part of the lungs. So that place where exchange is actually needed, that is where you can see this squamous, because the thickness will allow diffusion to occur. The same thing with any other part of the capillary, because in capillary, that is where exchange occurs, the exchange of nutrients, the exchange of chemicals, and the rest of them. So this thickness can allow those diffusion to occur, and that is why squamous is the best epithelia you can see in those places. Coming to compound epithelia, we have the stratified. Stratified, anyway, there should have been one here, which they call them pseudo stratified. Pseudo stratified, they look like stratified, but they are not actually stratified. Remember, the reason why they categorize this one under compound is because their their cells their cells are in layers. Let me just give you a sketch of how a compound epithelium looks like. Okay, let me draw stratified now. For example, if these things were cuboidal, you can see these cells are directly attached to the basement. Now, a situation whereby you have another layer of cuboidal and maybe another layer of cuboidal. Once they are more than one, another layer, maybe at the end of it, you may be having a squamous epithelia, having so many layers of cuboidal and at last having a squamous epithelia. This is an example of stratified because there is already having many cells. As you can see, this particular cell here is not directly attached to the basement. That is what makes them compound. In simple, the cells are, if this thing were to be from here, these layers were not added, it is simple. But because there are so many layers here, and this particular cell is not attached to the basement, it is compound. So this is a typical example of stratified. Stratified having cuboidal, and they are the end having squamous. This is an example of epithelia you can see in skin. So what you have here is stratified, but in a situation whereby, let me explain this pseudo stratified. Pseudo stratified looks like stratified, but they are not actually stratified. See how pseudo look like? Pseudo epithelia. Pseudo epithelia looks like this. It looks like this. It looks like this. Okay. It looks like this. And the rest of it, okay, they look like this. Now you have one cell here, this is another cell, one cell, another cell, one cell, another cell. Okay, so when you look at this thing, all these things are individual cells, and you can see this particular cell is touching the basement. This particular cell having nucleus is touching the basement. This particular one is touching the basement. But when you look at them generally, they look like layers of cells. This one is on like this one is under this one is under this, but they are not actually under anyone. They are individual cells attaching the basement directly, and that is why they call them pseudo stratified. They look like stratified, but they are not actually stratified. Okay, coming to transitional. Transitionals, they look like a polyhedra. They are polyhedra in nature. The cells looks like this. The basements are usually around. So this is a polyhedral cell arranged in this format. So they are transitional. And one important thing about transitionals are they are being needed where there is likelihood for distensions in the body. For example, in the urinary bladders, in the urethra, where there is much tension. Tension is actually needed. Tensile strength is actually needed. That is where you can see them because they can withstand so many strengths. After which you can get this stratified. But in higher degree, this transitional is known to be existing in a place where there is higher pressure. The epithelium that we know, though they are cells that form tissue, but they don't have blood vessel in them. But how do they survive? They survive with the help of the neighboring cells around them. So with the help of diffusion, they get nutrients and they can pass waste products. So with the help of diffusion, that is how the epithelia survive, even though they don't have blood vessels. Alright, we shall be looking into connective tissue. Connective tissues. Having known that cell is the basic unit of life, and you know that the aggregate of this cell makes up a tissue, they make up a tissue. This connective tissue helps to gather them in their specialties. So the connective tissues are the tissue that help to gather cells in their specialty. They can be subdivided into connective tissue proper. Also, we have the skeletal connective tissue. We have the blood. Alright, so we have the blood. Under here, we have the alveolar connective tissue. We have the white fibrous tissue. We have the yellow elastic tissue. So under the skeleton, we have the cartilage and we have the bone. All right. So these are the subdivisions under connective tissue. Connective tissues that we know they help to gather cells in their specialties. And it will be desirable to know that each connective tissue makes up of the cell, they make up of the fiber and the ground substances. Ground substances. They could also call the ground substances the extracellular materials, that box up the connective tissue. So each connective tissue that we shall be discussing have these three things. So in the varying degree of these things determines the particular connective tissue that we're talking about. For example, in the blood may not have fiber there, but it have other parts. It have the cells, it have the ground substances. In the bone have a greater percentage of the ground substances there that make them to be rigid and be hard. All right. The connective tissue proper, the alveoli is basically the whole connective tissue that we know about. The whole of the connective tissue that we know about. And the important thing about the alveoli is that they enable the tissue for it to be extended. It enable flexibility. So there is much flexibility here. There's much flexibility. In white fibrous tissue, there is higher strength and there's a restricted flexibility in the white fibrous tissue. For example, you can see this one in tendon. In the tendon helps to connect the bones and the muscle. Remember what I told you? Connective tissues help to bring the cells together. They help to bring things together from the name connective. All right. So tendon is an example of white fibrous tissue. Okay. There is much restriction here. There is higher fiber there. There is higher fiber. Remember, I told you that in each of the connective tissue, they will be varying in the size of this, whether one is present, whether one is higher in proportion than the other. Okay. So coming to the yellow elastic tissue, elastic tissue is the part of the connective tissue that enable a distorted part to be regained again. They enable a distorted part to be regained again. For example, the skin can be stretched. The skin is elastic, and what makes the skin to reach elastic limit is because of the white fibrous tissue. And once that fibrous tissue is stretched, that means the skin has reached its elastic limit. Now, what enables the skin to regain its distorted part is the yellow elastic tissue. So this one helps to regain a distorted part of any tissue that has been stressed. All right. For the skeleton, we have the cartilage and the bones. The cartilage and the bone. Under the cartilage, I failed to write that we have the hyaline. We have the hyaline cartilage. We have the fibro. We have the fibrocartilage. And we have the elastic. We have elastic cartilage. All right. The elastic cartilage, the fibrous cartilage. Cartilage in human being, for example, the embryo of the mammal, there is a particular stage in mammal's life stage that the whole of the skeleton that will be seen there is just the cartilage. So there's a particular time when all living things, all the mammal that existed when they were still embryo, when they're still fetus, they are basically cartilage. So the kind of cartilage that you see there is the hyaline. So hyaline cartilage is what you see in embryo of mammals. So in the young early age of their life, they have cartilage all over their body as their skeleton. But with time, those cartilages are being replaced with bones. They are being replaced with bone. Now, even in bones too, the surfaces of the bone, the epiphyses and the diaphyses, the parts of the bone, for example, if this were to be the bone, so all these parts are the epiphyses, and this part is diaphyses and epiphyses. So all these parts of the bone, they are being coated with cartilage. Apart from the part that there is a particular stage of mammal, the stage of their life that the skeleton are holistically cartilage, which is replaced later with bones. In an adult, The epiphysis and the diaphysis have cartilage too, and this is the hyaline cartilage. So they have higher strength, they have fibers too, they can withstand strength. So coming to the fibroskeleton, they are flexible in a way, they have fibers too, but hyalins are harder than them. So in fibrocartilage, they are little flexibility, even though they have fibers. And where can you see this one? You can see them in the intervertebral disc. We have the vertebra, we have the thoracic, we have the cervical, we have the lumbar, we have the sacral. Now, in between them, in between each disc, you'll be seeing this cartilage, the fibrocartilage, the fibrocartilage. Remember, this one is harder, followed by this one. Coming to the elastic, elastic cartilage are found in the places where there is easy regaining of a distortion, where there could be a regain of shape after distortion. For example, in the pineal, the cartilage that we have in our ear, in our nostrils, these are the elastic cartilage that we could find there. Coming to the bone, bone is hard. Is a particular structure that got replaced or that is being replaced with after cartilage have existed in mammalian stage of life. So bone have a higher strength, they have a greater matrix, they have fibers, they have collagens, they have anything that could make them to be strong. They have calciums, all these minerals that enable them to have that rigid nature. Okay, so we have the internal matrix. The internal matrix of the bone have some halos, they have some cells, the osteocytes that are there. They have a particular canal that they call Heavy-Sand Canal. Heavy-Sand Canal. One of the importance of this Heavy-Sand Canal is that in this Heavy-Sand Canal, you will be seeing the vessels, the blood vessel, the vein, the arteries, the capillaries are embedded in them. And without the capillaries and all these vessels, there will not be exchange of materials there. So in the Heavy-Sand Canal, that is where even the osteocytes are being found there, and the rest of the materials that are found in the Heavy-Sand Canal. Now coming to the blood. Blood have so many cells. Remember, blood have cells, but blood does not have fiber. Blood does not have fiber, and that is why they are mostly liquid. So there is no fiber in blood. They have cells, which are called the blood corpuscle. The blood cell or blood corpuscle, they don't have fiber, but they have ground substances, they have matrix, but those matrices are not produced by the blood. They have plasma matrix. And remember, plasmas are not produced by that blood. They are being produced by the bone marrows and the rest of the substances, the erythropoietin and the rest of the substances, the protein that help in their productions. So under this place we have cells and we have ground substances, and the cell that we have here, we have the red blood cell, we have the white, we have the platelets, we have the plasma. Okay, the red blood cell, like we know, this red blood cell harbors hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is what enables blood to harbor oxygen for strength. So red blood cells have hemoglobin, and hemoglobin is just a pigment that makes the blood to be red. Without hemoglobin, there won't be any red coloration of the red blood cell. So the red corpuscle or the red blood cell, they are being known for having hemoglobin, which enables human being or any animal that is having hemoglobin in them to harbor oxygen and to get strength. So we have another name for this red blood cell. They are called erythrocytes. They are called erythrocytes. So it's called red blood cell or erythrocytes. So the next one is the white blood cell. It is called white blood cell or leukocytes. Leukocytes. And another one is the platelets. The platelets or thrombocytes. The thrombocytes or platelets. Okay, so this white blood cell help to find diseases, like we know it helps to fight all the debris, the bacteria that try to invade the blood, the system, while the platelets helps in clotting. So when they are exposed to air with the help of calcium that produces fibrin, which is a cascade mesh that causes coagulations. So when they are exposed to air, they they are transcribed to all those meshes that help in blood clotting. Now the plasma is basically water. The 91% of plasma is just water. So water, the most fluid part of the blood is plasma. So plasma is colorless. They are just colorless. They are just there, and that is why you can see them in lymph. Even though lymph does not have any correlation. Why? Because they don't have any trace of hemoglobin in them. All right. So now let's discuss about the lymph. The lymph. Remember, at the capillaries where the exchange occur, the exchange of nutrients occur, there will be some blood that could spill out from the capillaries. They are the lymph. The blood that spill out from the capillaries are the lymph. And the lymph is just the plasma. What makes up the lymph? The plasma plus the white blood cell. The white blood cell has, to some extent, traces of platelets, but there is no trace of red blood cell in the lymph. Okay, so lymph can also participate in the fighting of diseases. Why? Because they have the white blood cells in them. Having discussed about the epithelial connective tissue, let's go to muscle tissue too. Muscle tissue. Muscle. Okay. So muscle help the skeleton. Without the muscle, the skeleton may not be functional. Skeleton is a supportive tissue, yes, but the muscle help the skeleton to function properly with the help of tendon, that connects the muscle and the. Now, having discussed the connective tissue, the tendon is a connective tissue that is attaching the muscle to the skeleton that will enable the skeleton to do its supportive work properly. Now, let's discuss the muscle tissues. Muscles are made in bundles. They are made in bundles called fiber. All right. But before then, let me just classify the muscle tissue before we continue. We have the one that they call skeletal muscle. We have the one we call smooth muscle, and we have the one that we call cardiac muscle. All right. So these categories determines or tells the kind of function that they do. The skeletal muscle, they are basically attached to skeletons of the body. The smooth muscle, they are in the internal body, the internal environments of the body. They don't necessarily do that stressful work, but we are coming to that. And cardiac, they are located in the heart. So cardiac muscles, they are that of the heart. Cardiac muscle, they are the muscles of the heart. Now, one peculiar thing about this skeletal muscle is that they are striated. You can see them in the bundle that looks like meshes. They are striated, like they have stripes in them. And that is why they can do stressful work. They can come together, do stressful work. Skeletal, that is skeletal. The basic part of the skeletal muscle, or the basic part of the muscle, is called a fiber. The smallest part of the bundles is called a fiber. Now inside the fiber is just one strand of it. Now inside the fiber, there is another smaller part called the fibril. The fibril is smaller. So when you see the muscle, the smaller part you will see is the fiber. The smaller part you will see is the fibril. So this one is a smaller part. The aggregate of these make up the muscle. Now, the parts of the fiber that you will see, there is a part that they call sarcolemma. You will see sarcolemma, just like cytoplasm. Okay, we have sarcoplasm. Okay. Sarcoplasma is just like a cytoplasm, while sarcolemma is just the membrane of the fiber. While this one is just the cytoplasm, the space in the fiber. All right. So, but the fiber, inside the fiber, you see the fibril. All right. So, in this fibril, the smallest part of the fibril is called the sarcoma. more. The sarcoma. All right, the sarcoma, that is the smallest part. So meaning that for contraction to occur, there are little pigments produced by this fibril. The fibril have so many pigments in them, the proteinous pigments in them, that causes contraction. So in the fibril, remember this is the smallest part. In the fibril, they give two pigments that they call myosin and the actin. So myosin and the actin. So this is the thicker part of the fibril, and this one is the thinner part, the thin part of the fibril. So contraction occur by these two sliding over another. So when they slide over another in the muscle bundle, that is when contraction will occur. When you strain your muscle, this protein have to slide on top of each other for contraction to occur. So having said this, let's look at smooth muscle. Smooth muscles are unlike the skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles are voluntary. I mean, you can strain your muscle at any time you wish. So these are skeletal muscle, but in smooth muscle, you cannot strain them. They are mostly innervated. What do I mean by innervated? The nerves runs through them. And they are mostly coordinated by autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system. If you remember the nervous system, there are some parts that cannot be, there are some parts that control involuntary actions. So the autonomic nervous system is a part that controls the involuntary actions. So smooth muscles are innervated and they are being controlled by the autonomic nervous system. So anytime they are needed to be shut, close, or to contract or to dilate, it is the autonomic nervous system that carry out those activities. For example, in the tubulus, in the vein, in the arteries, there are some situations where arteries needed to be constricted. For example, if the level of salt reduces in the body and there's a lower blood pressure, the body can signal to the autonomic nervous system. The brain can signal to the autonomic nervous system, and it will cause the smooth muscles of the vein, of the artery to constrict, so that there will be increase in blood pressure. So you can see that all these activities, they are being carried out, they are being controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Now coming to the cardiac nervous system, cardiac nervous systems are striated too. Remember, these ones are striated. For something to be striated, that means it's an indication that they do stressful work. Their contraction is actually needed mostly. So these ones are striated, they have stripes. These ones are not striated, they are smooth, they are plain. Just that the autonomic nervous system carry out the activity, or that controls the activity. Cardiac muscle, they are also striated, they have stripes. But the difference between the skeletal muscles and the cardiac muscles is, in this one there are interconnecting discs. So these ones that are this way, you may be seeing so many muscles this way. In the cardiac, now they are related like this. They are connected this way. So all these things are interconnected discs. The bundles are connected by what we call interconnected disc. So what is the essence of this interconnected disc? Remember, for them to be striated, they can contract, but it's not enough to contract. In cardiac, the contraction needs to be done in unison. Contraction needs to be done at a time. So that is why there is interconnected discs. So that when contraction is happening in this bundle, it will also be happening here simultaneously at the same time. So that is why interconnected discs are placed in between the cardiac muscle. So here there is interconnected discs. Here is no striated, it's just plain, but it's controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Here it is striated and it carries out the voluntary activity. The way we discuss in connective tissues, the rest of the tissue, muscle tissues, we have nervous tissues too. And these are the tissues that we see in the nervous system. Their aggregates make up the nervous system. It will be desirable you note that the unit of the nervous system is neuron. nervous tissue. Okay, nervous tissues are the what makes up the nervous system. All right, the unit of it is the neuron. The neuron, or they call it nerve cell. Nerve cell. So the unit of it is the neuron, or is also called the nerve cell. So these are the cells that make up the nervous tissue. The nervous tissue coming together makes up the nervous system. All right. So let me just give a rough sketch about. Let me just give a rough sketch of nervous cell. Okay. Nervous cell. All right. This is the cell body. This is just for explanatory reasons. Okay. This is a cell body, and this is a myelin shell. Okay, here you'll be seeing something like this. Anyway, it depends on cell. It varies where you can see them. It varies whether it's in central nervous system or peripheral nervous system. Remember, this thing, they can be divided into two based on where they are found in the body. The nervous tissue, the nervous cell, depending on where they are found in the body. We have the CNS, the central nervous system, the central nervous tissue. We have the PSN, that is the peripheral, okay, NS, nervous system. Okay, so these are basically found, all the nerve cells found in the brain and the spinal cord, they are categorized under CNS, central nervous system. Now the nerve cell found all over the body, both the hand, the leg, the abdomen, the thoracic cavity, everything. The rest of the since they are not found in the brain, they are not found in the spinal cord, that means they are under this. So spinal cord and brain, the nerve cell found there are categorized under CNS. Alright, this is a typical drawing of nerve cells. Nerve cell. So these ones are called the myelin sheath. The myelin sheath. This is the cell body. So all these things are the dendrites. Okay. So this particular point is called the node of Ramva. The node of Ramva. All right. This process that you are seeing here, this process is called the axon. It's called the axon. It is called the axon. So this is how impulse happens. So when a particular neighboring nerve cell transmits an impulse to this cell body, they are being transmitted here. When they get to the dendrites, they are being transmitted to the neighboring nerve cells again. Now look at the particular unique structure that you may see here. You may see the melanin shells. The melanin shells are these fatty substances that you are seeing here. Fatty substances, all these disruptions that you are seeing here, the space and another object, another network. All these things are melanin sheaths. Melanin sheaths. Now with these spaces, this disruption, they call them node of Ramva. Now normally impulses passes along the axon. Now, but in a nerve cell that is having the melanin sheath, because of this melanin sheath, the impulse will be jumping. The impulse, when they get to this place, they will be jumping from one node of Ramva to another. Because of these obstructions, because of the melanin sheath that is obstructing, they will be jumping. The impulses that should be transmitted straight will be jumping because of the melanin sheath. Now, the advantage of this melanin sheath is that for any cell having melanin sheath, there will be faster transmission of impulses because the time needed for the transmission to be taken normally will be circumvented. So from this thing jumping, it will enable the impulse to be transmitted faster. So melanin sheath helps. But this melanin sheath, they degrade with age. As someone is getting old, the melanin sheath, the fatty substances in the brain, they wear down. The nerve cells, they die off, and they are not usually replenished easily. Okay, so that is for nerve cells. Coming to the central nervous system, I've said that the brain and the spinal cord are the parts that you can see here. Why these are the parts of the body that is outside the brain and the spinal cord. It will interest you to know the types, the types of nerves, the types of nerve cells, the types of nerve cell or neurons. We have the sensory, we have the motor neurons. You remember, neurons can also be called nerve cells, neurons, and we have the one that we call interneuron. So these sensory neurons, they are found maybe in the skin. They help to attract stimuli. When they get the stimuli, they will send it to the interneuron. Interneuron means that they are in between. So most of the interneurons, all of the interneurons, they are found in the brain, in the CNS. They are found in the spinal cord, where interpretation is actually needed. So when stimuli are being received by the sensory neurons, they push them to the interneurons. After interpretations, the interneuron will send them to the motor neurons, where the effect will be felt. Examples of places where you can see the motor neurons are the muscles, the gland, and the rest of the places where you can see these ones are in the skin, and some other places that are meant for receiving stimuli. So interneurons are found in the CNS, where interpretations are being found, where interpretations are being carried out actually. All right. Now in this transmission, for example, for pain, if sensory neuron senses pain, and is transmitted to the interneurons, and now to the motor neuron, to the muscle where it will be felt. If there could be disruption in the transmission, if there is a way to disrupt the transmissions, the pain could be circumvented. So anything that can breach the transmission of impulses can also stop the effects. So if pain is being sensed by the sensory neurons, transmitted to so at any point where the disruption can occur, for the stimuli to be disrupted, the effect will be felt. For pain to be disrupted at any point of this transmission, the pain will not be felt, and that is the mechanism of so many drugs that we use. All right, and that is the types of cells that we have. Now, having said about these nerve cells are what makes up the brain, the CNS, the peripheral nervous system, the tissue itself. All these cells, the nerve cells makes them up. But there are some cells, they are not nerve cells, but they are found in the CNS. They are found in the peripheral nervous system. They are not nerve cells, but they are also part of the nervous system. And what are they called? They call them neuroglia cells. Or they call them Schwann cells. Alright? Neuroglia cell or Schwann cells. Neuroglia cells or Schwann cells. So these things are the same. These cells, they help the nervous system, but they are not nerve cells. So meaning that it is not only nerve cells that makes up the nervous system or nerve tissue. There are also another category of cells that are there that helps to make sure that CNS does its work, or the peripheral nervous system does its work. Now, these cells are called the neuroglia cell or Schwann cell, depending on where they are being found. So if those cells are found in the CNS, they are called neuroglia cell. But if those cells are found in the peripheral nervous system, they are called the Schwann cells. They have so many duties. They can be helping to protect the nervous system, the nerve cells. They can be supporting the nerve cells in so many ways. So any cell that is not basically nervous system and do that kind of work or does that kind of work, they can be called a neuroglia cell or Schwann cell, depending on where they are being found. Now let's list some of the cells that we are talking about. We have the microglia cell, we have the astrocytes, we have the ependymal cells, we have the oligodendrocytes, we have the satellite cell. Okay, let me now chip in Schwann cell, even though I've explained it. Cells. Okay. So all these things are, depending on the name that you call them, glia cells, Another name for this, you can remove the neuro, and they call them glia cells. But when they are found in the CNS, they are called neuroglia cells. When they are found in PNS, they are called the Schwann cell. These are the cells that we're talking about. All these cells are found in the nervous system, even though they are not nerve cells. Now, what are their functions? Microglia cell. Microglia cell help to fight bacteria that try to penetrate the brain. So any debris that are not there in the brain, they help to filter it out. Any diseases in the brain, to save the brain of the risk of brain damage. So anytime there is a risk of damages in the brain, this particular cell filter the damages of the brain and they clear it off. All right. The astrocyte is the particular cell that makes sure that the nerve cells have their nutrient that they need. So they provide the brain cell with the nutrient that they need, and they also reduce the amount of neurotransmitters. There are chemicals in the brain that are called neurotransmitters. They are the chemicals that help in coordination. They help in some exhibitions of some characters. For example, we have the serotonins, the GABA agonists, and the rest of them. There are many chemicals that are neurotransmitters. And the funny thing about these chemicals is that when they are in excess, they will cause problem. You can imagine yourself being too much excited. It will seem as though you want to die. So this particular astrocyte helps to reduce the quantity of neurotransmitter to the minimum that the body or the brain need for it to carry out this excitation, or this the opposite side, which is the inhibition of the excitation. All right, that is for astrocyte. And also they help to building up blood-brain barrier. So these astrocytes, they help in nutrients. They help to reduce the neurotransmitter that is in excess. They also help to build the blood-brain barrier. This blood-brain barrier is a particular membrane in the brain that selectively tells what comes into the brain. They tell what comes into the brain so that the brain cannot get damaged. Any chemical cannot enter the brain, like any chemical that are in oily nature and the rest of them. These are the category of chemical that can pass through the brain, but that of the liquid soluble and the other that of the chemicals, they cannot enter. And this is so selective because of this man, because of the astrocyte. Astrocytes help to build the blood-brain barrier so that anything cannot enter through the brain. Now coming to ependyma. Ependyma produce what they call cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid are found in the canals of the spinal cord. In the spinal cord, they are found in the canal. They are found all over the brain. They are the fluid that you can find in the brain. Now, what do? They help to maintain their buffer, their natural buffer solutions of the brain. So they maintain the pH, they maintain the sugar pressures of the brain, and the rest of the activity that they help to carry out. But it is the ependymal cell that helps to produce the cerebrospinal fluid. They are written as CSF, the cerebrospinal fluid. Now the oligodendrocyte. The oligodendrocyte helps to produce the melanin sheet that we talk about. The melanin sheet that I told you about, that it helps to carry out the impulses. They help to increase the rate of impulses transmission along the axon. Okay, the melanin sheet is produced by the oligodendrocyte. Now for the satellite cells, they help to cover the cell body. The cell body of the nerve cell, they lie on the surface to help to cover them, to hasten transmission and to protect it against any toxic chemicals. Now there's the one cell, like I told you earlier, they are simply the neuro, like just the name that I told you. They are just basically the glia cell that you can find in the peripheral nervous system. And I hope that with this little thing that I've just did now, I've actually imparted knowledge. And they don't fail to subscribe to Children's Academy channel. Thank you so much.